Welcome to another book club sharing session at the 1010 Book Club. I am Billy Chan. Today we are going to sketch your dream vacation with Alex Lingle. Alex believes that everyone can draw, can sketch cartoons. With these simple techniques that Alex are going to share with you, you are able to draw anything that you want. And with this keyhole cartoon concept which is very easy for you to grasp, you are able to get this out from this session. If this is your first time here today, I would encourage you to subscribe to us so that you can get the latest sharing session in the coming months. Alright, let's start. I did learn from Alex before on the learning skill, and eventually it is a tools that we can use to it's not a tool, it's an alternative tools that you can see if this help you to visualize what you want and also to draw out so that you can convey this as a message to the public or to someone that you wanted to share this about. So this is about the sharing that Alex is going to do for today. Alex, did I miss anything that you want to add on that one?
No, Billy, you nailed the introduction. That's a fantastic intro, and thank you for doing the background research on me. That's fantastic. It's actually kind of funny you mentioned how these skills could come into play. I would have never guessed my cartooning skills would actually come in my work today. Actually, not specifically cartooning, but the drawing techniques and skills that I've learned over the years are actually related directly to my role as an entrepreneur in residence. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to be doing storyboarding. I'm going to be training my team how to do storyboarding so that when we one of the phases in the incubation of a new company or a new venture is to test out different stories with a potential customer segment, and you actually literally storyboard out a context of a situation, of a problem. And so first is the context, you set the stage. The second panel is the problem. The third panel is the solution. And the fourth panel is the resolution. And so it's a 4-panel storyboard that, it's funny, I'll be teaching my cohort team how to do that tomorrow. So it's, the skills that you learn just from cartooning, I did for fun and as a hobby most of my life, but here we are today. I'll be speaking tomorrow with my team about how to actually do this. And maybe if we have time, I could show you a couple examples of what a storyboard might look like using after we learn some of the cartoon techniques that I teach you today. I also have a supplemental resource, a TED Talk. So for folks that are interested and want to follow up, and even if you're like a complete newbie, never cartooned ever in your life, you never had thought that you had any skill at cartooning or drawing, I brought out a link I just shared in the chat for folks that they can watch after this, after your work day is done or when you get some free time or during lunch. This is a 10-minute TED Talk from a really great public speaker on talking about how anybody can learn to draw, and his techniques are really good alternative to some of the techniques that I have that I'll be teaching as well.
Just have a few questions for you to really kickstart and to let people find out their inspiration, if you would, on how about drawing or cartooning in specific. Okay, the first question for you, Alex. When you pick up cartooning and why actually you do so?
That's a great question. I started as a kid, Saturday morning cartoons, watching cartoons, with a bowl of cereal, and always admired the different cartoon styles, everything from like Acme, Looney Tunes, Warner Brothers, classic cartoons to, the modern cartoons that, at the time was Simpsons. But I even watched like Flintstones, Jetsons, so those are like animated cartoons. But then I also read comics, the Sunday comics the day after. So Saturday, was the cartoon animated series. Then you know, after the day after that would be your Sunday paper, which is the comic section would be in color. You know, every other day of the week they'd have a really small comic strip section, but be black and white. But the Sunday comics would always be in color. So I always was inspired by like comics like Garfield and Calvin and Hobbes, Peanuts. And I always thought, man, if this is their job, they could do this. They get paid money. This is their living. You know, I thought that was really cool. So I thought, you know, maybe as a hobby, I could do this, and then maybe it turn into a career someday. But that inspired me to want to draw, and actually, eventually, I ended up getting my first book on drawing, which is the book we'll be talking about today, which is the Cartoonist Workbook by Robin Hall. And this kind of gave me like some of the first tricks in the book on techniques on how to draw cartoon characters. And yeah, it was that was kind of I think the legacy of what led to inspiring me to pick up the and I love to doodle too. That was the other thing. I always was like, even from the earliest memories of school, I always was like drawing random things, or even if it was just squiggly lines, just patterns. Um, so that's the first back I can remember
Alex,
is always my homework.
Alex, you have been mentioning about a lot about the Robin Hall's book on the Cartoonist Workbook. Among so many books, and then why you are still clinch on that this book is for you, and then what is in this book that inspires you, or what in this book that trigger you to continue? Because there's so many books out there.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. This I don't know. There's a lot of nostalgia for this for me, just because it was the first book on drawing techniques that I picked up. There's a lot of books out there that do this kind of stuff, but this one has a little bit of everything. So it's not just, you know, they have like basic techniques for like drawing cats, dogs, you know, different styles, and then they have positions and like animation. So not just the, you know, a static person, but somebody dynamically in motion or throwing a ball, doing you know, light source shading. So it covered. It wasn't just like all in one, or I mean, it wasn't just like one specific subject, but it had a little bit of everything. Um, and so and it gave like a really good foundation on starting with one type of character style, like auteur, and just kind of developed from there. And then it even teaches you how to like write a gag. You know, here starting with like a DC Comics style and having the visual situation and the punchline, and you know, so that makes you start thinking about, okay, I could turn this into, you know, if I have a notebook of gags or jokes that I think of, I could eventually turn that into a situation. So it teaches you like, yeah, the method of writing and punchlines and situations for writing gags. So it goes into not just the drawing, but how the cartoonist thinks. And it's like their notes, you know, how you would do it, what are the situations. And then even at the very end, they have some tips on like how to market yourself as a cartoonist.
So, Alex, as you are flipping the books and saying that, right? So, I have a follow-up question for you. Say I am a beginner in this, I have zero skill. Again, you might be counting me about zero skills. Someone said that I have zero skills in drawing. So, as a beginner, right, how would you break down the skills that you have, and probably what is the first three skills that I need to learn? I just off the sky, is it how I hold a pencil, how I structure my mind, or anything that I need to have in order to draw as good as you?
I think the purest sense is that you don't really need any skills. You just have to believe in yourself, have the imagination, you know, be creative, be open to creativity. Anybody can draw if they believe in that. If those three important aspects, and then it's practice. Practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect for any skill. You know, whether you're a musician learning to play piano or becoming a cartoonist for hire. You're gonna have to practice. So I think getting yourself into a state where you're comfortable, where you feel comfortable or relaxed, you know, without judgment, and then that freedom of creativity and imagination just kind of goes and flows. And I think whether you have technology like a tablet to touch screen and draw, or if you just got a pen and paper, there's no limit. So anybody, all of the skill that I have comes from drawing on pen and paper, and usually pencil, or I think most of it was pencil, and then eventually went to ballpoint pen, and then felt tip markers, and then depending on what medium, whatever felt comfortable to the hand as you drew, or whatever flowed out and felt nice, that's usually what I would pick. And like with today's example, we're using a Microsoft Surface Studio, courtesy of Demo Depot, to do our drawing.
Okay, so for those that have question, right, you can throughout this session, you either can unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can put in the chat box. I will interrupt you, Alex, if to have some question that I felt is good for you to answer. And before I move on to the hands-on session, I want to pick the one last question actually from David in the chat box. David asked that how does cartooning helps you at Intel so far?
Well, it already has. So there's lots of people in the group that I work with on my team that are discovered that I have this skill, and they ask me to help for training the rest of the team. So it's interesting in a traditional technical role, you would never think that any ability to draw would be helpful, but in fact, it's actually to visually demonstrate a complex or abstract concept. Visually is the best way, sometimes even better than verbally telling somebody. You draw it out visually. You might have that advantage to get the concept across better. So it's a powerful technique. If you happen to have it, people might find out that's a new skill, or not a new skill, but a new value to the team that can give you another opportunity to do something even cooler in your organization. So I can't say specifically what I'm doing, but I could give an example at the end of what what a
We have
concept
a
could look like.
bonus session called the storyboarding.
Yeah, we
Okay.
could definitely have that. Yeah.
All right. Alex, let's move into the hands-on session right now. And I think you can start with someone is also asking about your Instagram account, someone asking about the best software to draw cartoons. So I think start with the tools. I
Sure.
will say, for me, I prefer free tools, free tools that we can use, and probably hardware and software, and probably go through you say in the good states and how can you accomplish that one, and then we will see on that. Okay, so pass it to you, Alex. I will mute myself unless I have question for you.
Sure. Yeah. So the tool we're using today on the Microsoft Surface Studio is called an Autodesk Sketchbook. It's free to download. If you go to sketchbook.com, you can download it today and use the same tool that we'll be using during our demonstration. It is kind of optimized for touchscreen surfaces, and it does feel like you're like what do you call it? Each individual pen stroke does have like a weight to it, so you can actually get really good, fancy, advanced drawings like this even. If you want to do some like real good painting art, I've used it for this too. Yeah, so this is
Do you need to have a fancy pen like this one?
you don't need to have a fancy pen, it's not required. It does help if you do have a pen. You could get better keystrokes, so the strokes will pick up better if you do have a stylus that has pressure sensitivity. So today I'm using the stylus that comes with the Surface Studio. So you can see here. And the program looks something like this. And so you get a color wheel. Today we're actually just going to use black. Actually, I could do more color stuff too if we need to, but for the most part, we're just using black. And I have it set to a pen that's kind of got like a, what do you call it? Fountain tip pen. So it kind of does have like a different weights and strokes. So the lighter I press, or the harder I press, the thicker it gets. The lighter, the thinner. So you can see there, it has a gradient of different thicknesses and stroke, which can add some technique to the actual drawing. So when you're drawing like a circle, kind of give it that, where it has a little bit more weight and a little bit less weight up at the top. And sometimes I like to start off just simply drawing a bunch of circles, or just drawing a bunch of squiggly lines just to warm up the hands, warm up the fingers. If you just woke up, or coming out of a cold walk outside. I don't know what the temperature is over there, but we're here. We just had some snow a couple weeks ago, and it's actually finally the first warm day we had in a while today. But yeah, I usually like to start with some circles. And in the book, one of the techniques it talks about to draw your first cartoon character is called a keyhole Ken. And a keyhole Ken literally starts off like this, and I'll show actually on the picture down here. So it'll be in the lower left corner, but you'll see it actually is literally like a keyhole shape. And it starts off with a circle, and then you add like a box underneath it, and then you'll see where we can add nose, mouth, and so forth in the feet here next. So let me show you how that looks. So I'm going to erase these really quick, and then let's see, start off right here. So we'll just have a standard circle, and we'll do this keyhole shape. And instead of actually filling it in all black, we're going to actually give him a nose.
Alex, is it possible for the audience to follow you, or there's another session to follow you?
What do you mean by follow?
I mean, follow what you're drawing, or we are going to do that later.
Yeah, if the audience wants to follow along, and if anyone also has a screen share and they want to, they can follow along. If they want to do this on iPad, I believe it does have it on iPad. It's Windows OS, iOS support, I believe, as well. Pretty sure it is on iPad.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't. And then the next thing you do after you give him a nose is you're going to give him some eyes. And then after you give him the eyes, and this time we actually chose him, he's facing this direction. So when you want to think about, when you're drawing a circle on a face, you want to think about where's the eyes going to be looking, and that dictates where the nose is going to be drawn. So if he's looking straight forward, nose is going to be here. But if he's looking to the right, nose is going to be over here, and then the eyes are going to be kind of slightly over to the right. And the eye line is dictated usually by where they're actually wanting to look. This is where you see that classic sign of this is where the eyes should go if he's looking up. This gives you that technique. And so if I were to do like a lighter version of this, looking straight up, his eyes would be up here. And actually the nose would sometimes even be covering the eyes. So depending on which direction, if you wanted them looking downward, and so forth. So then they all have their old keyhole shapes here. And I'm going a little bit fast, but let me just show you a great example of like a legend here of what's in the book. So I just kind of resketched this from the book, and here's the kind of the steps. So step 1, circle. Step 2, keyhole shape. And from here, you can determine whether or not it's going to be facing to the right, or to the left, or straight forward. And so that's how you determine where the eyes and nose are going to go. Today, what do we want to do do we want to just face it straight forward for now? Any feedback from the app? Does anybody know of Pictionary? That's another thing I forgot to mention. Pictionary was another inspiration for if anyone played the board game Pictionary as a kid. When I was really young, Pictionary was another one I forgot to mention that kind of
Not me.
kickstarted the drawing.
Oh, not me.
But yeah, so we'll make them face forward just for now, just the basics. So give them some eyes and a nose.
Alex, if you're
The
drawing on the bottom right, just be cautious. The video might be blocking the bottom right.
oh, okay. Yeah, I gotcha. There we go. And again, this isn't his mouth, so his mouth actually might be here. As you can see, this is his nose. Then we got to give him some hair. So that kind of gives you the idea of like basic keyhole, and they call it Keyhole Ken in the book. So it's Keyhole Ken is the character. And we could draw one more from scratch from here. So starting off with the circle. And this time we're going to make him facing to the right. Give him an ear. And instead of the arms off to the sides, they're going to have one arm here. You can't see the other arm because it's covered up. And the legs are going to be kind of more adjusted over to the right. And now you have your Ken here. And so there we go. We got kind of our basic cartoon character, Ken, in its basic form. And then I can show you, this is kind of the evolution or the foundation of the cartoons that I draw today. If you were to see me draw a quick sketch of a cartoon that I draw now, it looks like this. So it's evolved from the Keyhole Ken, and now I don't use as much of the guidelines. I give it a different hairstyle. And this is what I would call a lingle. Here's a lingle. It's my
Alex,
last
when
name.
you're drawing, it seems to be so easy and turns out to be quite pretty. How can you convince us that we also can draw like you?
I probably do make it look really easy. But the practice, like I was saying, I talked to people that are really successful in their craft. Had the privilege to, meet at one of the conferences, a game developer conference. I meet one of the top gamer people in the world. Well, at one time he was top. I don't know if he still is now, but his name was Fatality. His esports gamer name was Fatality. Does anybody know Fatality? The chat. He used to be like the top Unreal Tournament and Quake player back in the early 2000s, late 90s, and he told me when I had the chance to meet him that practice makes perfect. It's just practice, practice, practice. That's why he got so good. I asked him like, how is he so good? Like, how's he so good at every game? Even the new games that come out. And he says that as soon as the new game comes out, he just practices and practices until he's just really good. And I think at one point, what I would do to practice, if you want to go into practice mode, I would literally just start drawing circles until I could get a really good circle. Just practice circles over and over and over and over and over again. And here, I'll move this up a little bit. And eventually I would just get to the point where the circle is satisfied to my liking. Some people like more oblong circles, you know? Some people like more squished flat circles. And I would just try to get my circles as even as possible, or I just try to practice just the technique. And then eventually, once I had a page of circles, I'd be like, okay, let me just go ahead and give them all noses. And then I'd practice the nose technique of how I wanted to draw my character's noses. And it was just really quick. You know, it's okay if you mess up, move on to the next character. Don't even worry about, you know, scratching, or not scratching, but erasing or doing anything like that. And eventually I would just have a page filled with all these cartoon characters. And I remember, you know, if I were to go through all my old journals, you'd see just books, pages and pages just filled with these kinds of cartoons or doodles. Practice. So even though I'm really fast, it's okay if it's sketchy. Sometimes it's actually kind of cool. It kind of adds a little bit to the style. It doesn't have to be the same every time too. It could be a little bit different. You can make them like one with like spiky hair, like a calic. And a bit, you suddenly have this whole page filled with, you know, now it seems like in just a minute we just drew like 50 cartoons, or however many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like 18 plus 20 something plus cartoons. And yeah, so the practice, you know, as your hands get more and more comfortable, that eye-hand coordination you're developing too. So your eyes and hands get better at doing these kinds of sketches and practicing. And then even beyond that, you could even then add their necks, so then it looks like real people now instead of just circles. And it's again practicing your, you know, drawing straight lines compared to drawing just you know, circles or noses or dots. And you could do them all shapes and different sizes, and even another big circle. Down here, I've got even a dog. So here's a dog character that started off as a keyhole. So if I reverse this back, it's still just that. Let me just give him some legs and give him a nose, some eyes, and then some ears. Can have a wagging tail. The same thing for a cat. A cat has more pointier nose, rounder eyes, kind of more squinty. It's like going to be a tired cat. It's going to have some whiskers, and also triangle shape. Could actually also do a round one. So round style would be like this. Actually, let's go here. This kitty's all already in, like, kind of tucked up in a ball. Just woke up from a nap. Any questions in the chat so far, or anything?
There's one unrelated question from Gopali. He asked about how you kept up with your motivation and passion. And do you think that you wanted to compete in contests for this one?
Oh wow, competitive. Well, I don't think I've ever known of any um, competitions or cartoon contest, but if I had known about them, I might consider it. I definitely would. Right now it's funny. It's just it's been mostly a hobby most of my life, but it's interesting. Some of the things we do now in my role as an entrepreneur in residence is involves a lot of storyboarding of these characters. You have to quickly, yeah, and that's the thing too, is you might have to draw like 5 iterations of testing different stories and use cases, right, for different ideas. And so testing it out and drawing it out quickly and is a definite needed skill for that team. And I'm lucky enough to be able to use it actually. I don't get bonus points for just having the skill. Maybe that could change. um, if a team wanted me to just recruit me just for that, I would love to do it. Uh, yeah, so that's just like kind of a basic character drawing. Then the next thing is like, where do you put it? Where do you put the character? What scene? Where does it go? Um, the next thing is the context, right? Where do you want this character to be put? So if let's make it interactive. Let's ask the audience, let's make up a scene together. I mean, it could go as use your imagination. It could be outer space. We could be on a different planet. Um, Rick and Morty is a big inspiration of mine also, which I love Rick and Morty because it's limitless in terms of the idea, the concepts that they do. Some of them might be hard to draw and or hard to do in real life, but they're capable of being done in drawing, right?
Okay. For those, right, you guys can tap on the put it on the chat box. You can say that, or you can unmute yourself to say it. But Alex, I'm going to start first, right? Before you move to the dream vacation drawing, how about I wanted to visualize losing weight.
Visualize what?
Losing weight, lose weight to become
Oh, okay.
fat.
Um, there's a couple things where you could do here. Okay, so we can have our character, and actually I'll have you follow along well, actually we could yeah, let's do this first. We'll just have a character that's in motion. First I'm gonna draw the face, and they're gonna be exerting, kind of excited too, but they're also gonna be mouth open, kind of sweating a little bit. Because exercise, you got to sweat, right? So you have a little bit drops coming out. Hair might be soaked, kind of all over the place. And we're going to give them a running pose. So if the character is running, right, and if I were to draw a stick figure of this, you could have the arms kind of like out like this, or the legs kind of go
To the left.
motion. Oh, yeah, let me move that.
Okay, now it's okay.
There we go. So yeah, if you were to have a stick figure and it's running in motion, you'd have one leg out. So we're going to give him an arm. His body still comes out, so the keyhole shape is still here, technically. We're going to have one leg out, the other leg. So they're like kind of almost above ground or jumping in this case. And you could actually put them in shorts. Even short sleeves. The other arm could be out here too. The next one could be like climbing a mountain. Yeah, I saw that in the chat. So it could literally be.
Move to the left. Move to the left.
So it could be literally like climbing a mountain itself. So if you were to draw that in cartoon style keyhole shape, you'd have almost like a spider. Then you have like some kind of like rappel wearing a harness of some sort. Their nose is facing upwards. So you'd see that their nose is here, their hair is kind of like this. So you're seeing their back. And then they might have like a bunch of rocks that they're going up, trying to climb up. And this could be the context of the actual situation, and this is where you can frame it out for your actual shot. And then always erase out excess. Let's clean it up. Spider-Man? Oh yeah, that's kind of like Spider-Man too. Could have him like shooting off webs, coming up from a web.
Alex, while you're drawing, there's also a question from Atifa. How do you maintain the proportion of cartoons across multiple drawings? Just like in a comic strip.
Oh yeah, so that's a good technique. So there's actually you basically I used to use a notebook paper, but you basically have guidelines, right? And you'd have a couple of cartoons, and there'd be 3 sections, and in that way their proportions are the same. This would be like this. And that takes practice too. That's one of those things that getting the heights the same. So when I was practicing all those circles, I'd get the circle the same height every time, or I would try to get consistency. Instead of having one too small or one too big, I try to keep them all the same. The consistency is definitely one of those things that I think just takes practice, but having guidelines like pieces of paper that are like gridded or celled out, college ruled paper where it just has like the college lines definitely helps with kind of keeping especially for character development when you're developing a character. And, like some characters like might be a child, so the kid might be a little bit smaller, and then the adult might be bigger, right? So just to give an example of some context. You could give one in a meditation state too. So they could be actually sitting down with their legs, one under the other. It'd be like kind of like this. How do you add emotions to the character? That's a good one. Okay. Um, I like I like that. That's yeah, because right now a lot of these guys right now, it's a good point, are kind of expressionless. you might be able to add emotion a couple different ways. So let me go ahead and give you a couple examples. So you might have in the eyes, that's a big deal, right? So the eyes, just like how with everyone wearing face masks nowadays, you can actually see people smiling through the mask. It's called the smile lines, right? So you can almost see somebody smiling, right? This person could be really happy, and they just they got I don't know what it could be, example of the context, but they're just so super happy. They're so happy that their eyes are closed. um, Here's another context of a situation with a character that is opposite, maybe angry or frustrated. And so let me give you another circle here, and this time it is the two dots again, but this time got eyebrows involved, and the person might not be as happy. It might be a frown. So that's your anger. Um, then you might have somebody who's surprised, confused. Actually, yeah, that's like more of like, hey, what's up? There's also different styles of eyes. I forgot to mention that. So there's eye techniques where you can have literally circles. You could have eyes where it's just the dots. You could have eyes where you have like your own technique. You might even put triangles. Everyone has their own style of eyes that they develop over time. Um, in the book, the Cartoonist Workbook, there's actually a whole section just dedicated to this, the eyes part. Let me see if I can find it really quick. And a lot of it's about exaggeration of the emotion. There's the eyes. I can't find it, the direct section. It's like a lot of, but you get the idea. In fact, Rick and Morty, what they do is they do like kind of a unique set of eyes. Theirs is his is like just kind of like squiggly lines. They're not even like um, anything in particular. And every frame, you can almost see that the eyes themselves are a little bit different every shot. Oh, to start Sketchbook, so um, usually as soon as you open up, you'll get a new sketch. And I pick a custom size. This size is 4K, so it's 4,500 pixels by 2856. Oops. Oh, I just lost my drawing. It saved it. Okay, phew. And the cool thing is if it does lose the drawing, it recovers and does save a lot of the data memory. So I actually recovered all the stuff here that I didn't save. Proportions, are you talking about aspect? Like an aspect of like one area or one technique of one focal point?
I think like how big is the face, how big is the head, how big is the body. I think that's a proportion.
Oh, well,
Body,
that's
yeah.
that's a variable too. So over time practice, you find your proportions, but yeah, it's interesting. So the body itself might be 3 heads high or 4 heads high. So the actual head, keyhole shape, That's how you could get your proportions. The nose could vary. The nose could be something that's super small. It could be tiny. It could be huge. That just depends on what you feel that character would have. And as you can see, it changes a lot of the characteristics of the character. If you exaggerate the nose, especially, let me actually start. Sometimes, like, over time, I started off just with the circle to start my character. And then over the years, I started off with the nose being the first component of the character. And then from the nose, I build the eyes. And from the eyes, I'll have the mouth. This guy might be eating something. And the ear, hair, the neck. And the eyes, yeah, you can have them, still having glasses. Did that reversed, but let's do that. There we go. So there's them with glasses. Same thing here, you can have this character with glasses on too. Sunglasses, box glasses, and sunglasses. But yeah, typically like the character size will be about 4 heads high. Unless it's a child, then the child, it might be just two high or 3 high if it's a teenager. So that way you can kind of distinguish. And then the pet would be sometimes 1 to 2 heads high.
So Alex, from this picture, right? So the head is 1 head. So the body is around 1.5 head. The leg is also 1.5 head.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah, I
correct?
would say so. Yeah, that's about right.
Alex, do you want to move in draw your dream vacation? I'm not sure. Did anyone have a dream vacation that can draw so that we can follow it through as well for those that wanted to learn?
Start a new drawing. Okay. My dream vacation, if money was no object, I would go right to the moon. I'd go to the moon and take a golf lesson. The ultimate dream vacation would be to go to the moon, stay at a space hotel, float around in low gravity, and then take some golf swings on a golf course on the moon. Or to play tennis. Tennis would be interesting on the moon. Anybody in the chat? Oh, the drawing boards. The touchscreen is actually, that's a Microsoft Surface Studio. So it's an all-in-one computer. It is really huge, yeah. Let me, so if I zoom out in the background here, this thing can completely move. It can actually rotate up. I have it kind of in easel mode right now. So if you're gonna invest in a new computer or an all-in-one and you're wanting to do some artistic work or do work that you might consider getting a return on investment, this is worth the investment. Especially if, yeah, if you do CAD work or even storyboarding or whiteboard. If you like to use whiteboard with, imagine if you could have this for whiteboard on Teams, like when you go to your Teams calls and you want to draw some concept out, even if it's like a circuit design, you might have, some CPU connected to some, blah, blah, blah. Um, and you could easily draw concepts out for people visually. And sometimes people, are visual thinkers or visual learners. So people, especially a manager, some managers might think in non-technical terms, and you want to convey a subject to your manager. That manager, if you could draw it out for them on a whiteboard and say, hey, I want to do this concept plus this thing, and this is how we're going to get in between, and these are the redundancies that are going to go into place, and now you have these circuit designs that are going to help out for the next big project that could easily be mapped out, but it's hard to convey it conversationally, or hard to convey, um, and it doesn't have to be Microsoft Surface Studio. You could use totally, any tablet, iPad, Teams. If you were to integrate it to Teams, it would be a little tricky. But if you download the app for, I think iOS does support on iPad even as well. But yeah, there's anything that has a touch screen is something that I think would be to visually convey your meetings, any useful information or something that's more abstract. Visually, it could be huge. And I know that's one thing that I miss about being in the office, was having conference rooms with huge whiteboards where I could literally just go have a brainstorming session with the whole team, and we come up with something, take a picture of that whiteboard and email it to everybody. But I want to, yeah, so let's do an improvisation of oops, I don't want to save that. Let's do a new board, and let's do an improvisation of a uh, dream vacation. Like, yeah, give us a context, a setting. Um, let's spend the next, 10, 15 minutes drawing up the best vacation ideas. And I want to field it from the audience. I'm shocked. We got over 58 people here, then 3 of us or 4 of us are co-hosts, so about 50 plus people here. What are your ideas for your dream vacation? I mentioned the moon, but it could be something more practical, more realistic. It could be going to Hawaii, it could be going to the beach, could be going to the desert. Ooh, I see. Okay, so there's European holiday, cold weather. Uh, Anybody else? I want to give everybody a chance to throw in some input, and then we could all just decide together. Skiing, African safari, Paris, snow. We did just have snow in Portland not too long ago, so we could do a snow scene in Paris, maybe. And a vaccination queue. The humor here. This is great. This is cartoons. Alaska, Japan, Egypt. Wow. Okay. So we could let's do like one kind of box here. And we can have them. So first we're going to have them, they're standing in a queue. So there's going to be a line of people. Oh, but they have to socially distance. So here, like maybe the nose of another one. Off to the right. And we're going to do this super simple because do a couple of these, but in the background, and it's cold outside, so they're all wearing kind of like beanies and hats. snow cap. One of them's probably got like a beard. And in the background, we're gonna have a, 'cause it's snowy out, the Eiffel Tower. I'm like trying to think like what the Eiffel Tower looks like. I think it looks something like that. Almost looks like a rocket launch pad, but and it's snowing outside, so you're gonna have like snowflakes coming in. The next scene might have a the Egyptian pyramids. And in the foreground, you have people waiting in line again for quarantine to get their vaccinations. Hey, we got to be comical, right? So let's do.
Head scan. The temperature scan.
It could be snowing. Actually, yeah, we could have snow.
I, I doubt in Egypt everyone will be high temperature.
Camels. Oh, okay. So we have so camels. So actually, hold on. Draw the body first. It's kind of got a hump, kind of a couple humps. And then give him an eye. You can still have your cute people. Should have given him an ear. And then it could actually, yeah, be snowing here. So it could be actually snow. Which is actually have snowflakes coming down. Who would have thought snow in Egypt? We could have another one. The surface of the moon. There's like craters. It's just kind of rocky. You could have somebody that's golfing. Like have Earth kind of off in the distance. Smaller. There we go. UFO. Couple of them. And then the golfers, so the golfer's position, you can have them, you know, facing downward. So if their head is here, they're looking down. Their golf club. And the next frame is where they actually like show them sideways. Looking down. And the next shot could be actually taking this swing. And so the swing of a character, actually I haven't even thought about this. So if they're standing there, they have their golf club, tennis ball, not tennis ball, golf ball, but they're swinging, they're actually at the swinging point. Their hands are going to be up here. And the golf club might actually go out this way. So I have to actually draw that context. So this time they're looking straight down. They have their golf club. And actually taking the shot. Just make that a little bit smaller. This time the hand's up here. And so storyboarding is really quick in this fashion, where you literally are just drawing out, not the fine details, but you're just trying to get the actual substance of the matter, the subject, what's happening, what's being conveyed at hand. So the details isn't going to be as much as the quality is like something like a full-on like 5-minute drawn cartoon. So you're going to do each one of these like a couple seconds at a time. Of course, still have the background in, so you know the horizon. And then when they actually make contact, same thing, except it's gonna be the same thing as this scene over again, except it's gonna be a whack, motion, or a action. So you're gonna make like, so that's the other thing too, is you want motion on, convey the motion. And they're looking down, they might be even more focused. This time, actually have a whack sound. And then from there, you go back to the scene of context with Earth in the background. And the ball, show the arc of it getting launched into orbit. So now if we were to go back, and again, I'm kind of actually tying both just for sake of time, the concept of storyboarding into this action. So now, ignore the first two. These two are two different things, but then you set up the scene, context, we're on the moon golfing, he's looking down, he's focused, takes his backswing, hits the ball, and whacks it all the way off into orbit. My cat is yelling at me because it's normally her feeding time. So yeah. Any questions? Feedback on the chat? What do we got? I haven't been looking or paying attention lately, the last few.
Just more drawings.
Just more drawing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think any more questions to Alex? I think we can wrap it up. Yeah. Should we put colors or just the black and white?
So colors is a whole nother layer or aspects of storyboarding and cartoonisting. Like cartoonist drawing is just strictly black and white, but I could give you an example of something that I've done color. Save this. Show you an example here of some stuff I've done with color. So I've done cartoons with color. This is actually some of the first ones I was doing playing with this app. Those aren't the best examples. Let me find another one. So here's another one. A couple examples here. That one's interesting because I used blue lines. You know, I was trying to get creative with how I was doing the lines. Here's another one. Holding a cell phone.
Wenxin asked about shading.
Oh yeah, so shading, that's another interesting concept. So let me see.
And then we have advanced.
I have an
We have
example with
advanced
shading.
cartoonist also in the book club.
Show. I think I have one with shading. Maybe I do. It's this one. No.
Mm.
Well, there's shadows. So this is the concept where I add the shadow right here. So he does have a shadow behind him. So I do use shading, or it just depends on the context, but let me show an example of one. Don't save. I do a lot of abstract drawings as well. Does this one have shading? I think I did do, so I did do some shadows here, and then also, just to show you what a shading technique could look like, is you could give them hash marks.
Move to the left.
Oh,
To the left.
here we go.
Okay.
So you could give them hash marks like this to give them the technique of having some shade where the shadows might be. That's one way. Some people like to shade also cross-hatch style. So they might shade like this.
Mm.
And some actually use, like if I was using graphite, I might actually use the graphite itself to smear and shade, actually create some actual shading. That's just one of the ways people have done it. When you color, you might do some shading also, just by using a different shade of color, like a slightly different. I think in this category, do something like this, where for this red context, do a darker red. Shade it that way.
Oh.
Yeah, good point on the shading part. Sometimes it just depends on the style. You don't always have to have shading. Some styles of cartoons just don't do shading. Some heavily do it. Just kind of depends on your technique, what you're going for, how much detail you like. And then here's like some examples of some like abstract art that I've done. That's it. This one.
Well.
It's just color. No cartooning, just line drawing. And this is just like having fun with different, like just random abstract color pattern filling. Just basically using the fill bucket a bunch.
Alex,
And I
now
used to do this when I was a kid.
James asking a next level question. How do you convert this to animation?
We convert it, to an animation. That's a whole nother session. But I don't actually have much experience myself in animation. The most animation I used to do was in school, in like high school. I did some animation classes, and we used like I used to make GIFs, animated GIFs. you know, so like a cartoon dog licking itself or something like that. But that takes a lot of time. You have to do like 30 different drawings or 30 different cartoons to get the animated GIF done. And so it's like they basically use a program that gives you a transparency of the first frame, the next frame, and the frame before it. So then you could do your animation to know which motion something's going to go. But that's a good point. Animation, and I used to use Flash, but Flash is gone. Like I used to use Flash for creating animations for websites a long time ago.
Right.
And then lastly, but not least, a storyboard session template looks like this, where I was talking about there'd be a context, a tension or problem, and then resolution and then solution, or solution then resolution. And an example of that, just from like everyone had that problem of mute, and everyone working from home, being on Zoom, and you'd always have that one person that forgets that they're on mute, and that was a common thing. So we used that just as a fun example for a storyboarding session. And which one did I do? Is this one? So one of them, the context was the parent working from home with the kid that also is in a working from home, like taking classes from home. They always had to have them mute. Their parent had to help the kid learn how to unmute and mute, and the parent was like frustrated because they'd always have to like leave their call that they're on work with. And then there's this button solution that comes out where it's actually a clickable button that tells it the status of what they are. And now they just click the button and now the kid can, anybody could do it now. So that was one concept of a storyboard, one use case. And then another one was this one, using AI. So Joe's on a Teams call. He always has the problem with, people can't hear him because they say, Joe, you're muted again. And with this AI vision camera, the cameras can, automatically hear unless he covers his mouth. So it can see when his mouth is moving, so it knows to make sure that he's unmuted. And then finally, the solution, resolution solution is that everyone can hear him and everybody's happy. So that's kind of some storyboarding examples.
There's another question for you.
Oh,
I think, yeah, do you do a sketch before draw the actual cartoons?
oh, yeah. So sometimes it's not the final version. In fact, this one, the very first time I did this one, if I have the original, maybe I do. Sometimes these are the original. That one I redrew a second time, but this one, for example, is a little bit more raw, more sketchy, and this one is the original. But if I were to show this to a customer or an interview, I would draw it one more time. I would use this as the base example. So this would be the baseline for another potential drawing. But for some people, when we're doing this really fast, rapid testing, this is good enough sometimes too. And this is another example of the mute problem.
Alex, before we end it, I have a last question for you.
Sure.
Someone asked earlier just now is that asking about how they can find you. I know we are not in the same time zone and stuff like that. They're asking about your personal like Instagram? Do you have something like that that you would share with them that people can go and follow you and then probably ask you follow-up question from there? Or what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Probably the best way I would say is through LinkedIn. Um, you can find me on LinkedIn, just Alexander Lingle. And there's might be a couple profiles that's like my name, but the one that works at Intel is an entrepreneur in residence at Intel is the one you can just send me a message through, or connect through me, with me there. I don't give out my Instagram for personal reasons, just that it's a personal Instagram. I try to keep it really just for my close friends and myself. Um, for respective purposes of that, I won't give out my Instagram for that reason. But in LinkedIn, find me on there. We could connect that way. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to, you know, see if I could answer and give you some guidance there.
Right. Hope that you have a very fruitful learning today together with the 1010 Book Club and Alex Lingle. And if you like this much, do like and subscribe to this channel so that you get more learning in the future. I hope that you have a good learning and you too have a good day ahead. Happy learning and have fun doing it.